I don't know how many YouTubers would openly admit this, but I do firmly believe there is, of course, always a place in the world for unexciting cars, for boring cars, for functional vehicles that don't excite, but they have a job to do. And in many ways, as much as we all don't want to admit it, they're often far more important cars, both for people in general and for the companies that make them. When you start looking at the humdrum and the ordinary, you'll encounter very odd brands like, say, Volvo and Saab that don't really seem to have made anything particularly exciting, yet they have a real dedicated fan base. I think most car YouTubers wouldn't give something like this a second glance. Emily Shields notwithstanding, perhaps. But to me, cars like this will always be important, and I'm always interested when a petrolhead owns a car like this, because you know that it must have something to offer. This belongs to my good friend Dominic. He's got a Series 1 Elise. He loves it. He's an excellent driver. He also has a Golf R, but more often than not, it's this that he takes out. Why? Well, let's look at what exactly this is, shall we? It is a 2007 Volvo XC70. And in a nutshell, this could be all the normal car that you would ever need. It's also proof of just how stupid the current obsession with crossovers really is. Note that I don't say SUVs there. I could very well go after something like a Range Rover, but a Range Rover, a full-fat Range Rover, I believe, does have a place in this world. I had one for a week last year and I really enjoyed my time with it. I can see many reasons for the need of a Range Rover in this world. However, when it comes to things like the Range Rover Evoque, I am confused. You see, as far as I'm concerned, people should want either a small car, like for example, that Renault Clio Campus, or they should want a big car. And they want a big car because they need a big car. Now, I know that unfortunately isn't how the world actually works, but in my head, that's how it should. And if you need a small car, I suggest for Sir the Kia Picanto. However, if you're looking for something a bit bigger, you might want to consider something like this. Now, if you need to seat more than 5 people, the Volvo is out. In that case, you probably should be looking at something large, like the Audi Q7 or a Freelander or whatever Range Rover it is. Is it the Discovery? I think it's the Discovery. That's the one with 7 seats in it. I don't really know my big 7-seat cars, to be honest. I hate having more than 2 people in a vehicle at a time. Anyway, this is a wonderful dual car. Unless you want to carry more than 5 people. Well, we covered that bit already, didn't we? It has a 2.4 litre turbo diesel engine up front with 5 cylinders. And that's the first part of this car that's interesting because it's relatively economical. And I say relatively because it's been averaging about 26 to the gallon. However, I do know its owner really rather enjoys it. And it's also 4-wheel drive and quite heavy, so that's maybe not as terrible as it sounds. And if you compare that with, say, the 3-litre Audi A6 Allroad of the same time, you can expect similar figures. On a run, of course, this is going to do much better, and there were a selection of other engines to choose from. But if you're a petrol-heady type, this is probably one of the ones you're going to want to go for. There were powerful petrol engines available too, but if you want the fastest oil burner, this is it. Had 185 horsepower, but this one has a Polestar sticker on it, so it might have more. But we don't really know, to be fair. Polestar stickers, I suspect, are quite cheaply had. What it does have, which is of much more interest to a lot of people, is quite a lot of equipment. It has heated and cooled seats, and I currently, for some reason, have the cooling function on, and it's very effective, I have to say, very good indeed. The seats themselves are extraordinarily comfortable. This car also has a pretty decent DIN audio sound system, and for hi-fi people that's quite notable because DIN audio are one of the few brands that hi-fi people will actually both know and respect. DIN audio make really good quality stuff. It's even got a phone in it. I mean, a proper one. That's pretty cool. Of course, most of the infotainment here is fairly out of date, with this being one of the earliest of its generation. I believe Aston Martins of the time used the same sat-nav, and they were rightly derided for doing so. In fact, when you turn this car on for the first minute, it is convinced that it is still back home in Sweden. Here we are in the fjords of Scotland. When you're really pressing on, there's almost a faint Audi-like warble off in the distance, behind a symphony of sort of freight train and old tanker cruiser. Like listening to a rally stage behind a train station. A lot of other diesely noises in the way, sadly. But it is effective enough. It steers quite nicely too, and it is obscenely comfortable. I mean, really remarkably so. Now, sometimes I put that down to the fact that I'll have just got out of something really hard riding and firm and sporty. But not today, you see, for I have just got out of a Renault Aventine, and that was already a fairly comfortable and plush riding car. This is absolutely magnificent. This is a terribly paved road. It's seriously bumpy, trust me. I know, I've been over it in a lot of fairly firm sports cars, and this takes it in its stride. Wonderful. It seems to me like being comfortable should be so very easy, and yet it's not. I don't know why, but so few car manufacturers are willing, it seems, to make their cars comfortable. Perhaps it's our own fault because we have this obsession with sportiness. You know, everyone wants an M Sport BMW, which does make them look nicer, granted, but it also makes them ride atrociously, and not even for the trade-off of making them decent handling cars, because they often aren't. They're just nastier, they're just firmer. For a runabout, this is what I want a car to be like. And as a runabout, other things become important too, like the load space in the back. In fact, you can fit one Springer Spaniel with space to do laps in it. It's fabulous. You even have little things like a folding dog guard that stores in the roof of the car, so it's always there. Very clever little things. You've got 12-volt socket in the boot. Granted, fairly common now, but not so much when this car was new. We also have several modes for the suspension. They are comfort, sport, and advanced. So let's try out advanced, shall we, and see if it makes a difference. Yeah, it's a touch firmer. There's definitely less body roll. That's what it's done. It seems to have countered that a little bit, but not exactly transformed this into some sort of 850R. And let's face it, shall we? If you're looking for a cool Volvo, you are going to be looking at something like the old 850R. That's when Volvo made some wacky, weird and wonderful stuff. If you don't know what an 850R is, go look it up. It's bonkers. A lot of people think that they need an SUV because they live somewhere like here, the wilds of Scotland. But that simply isn't true. And this car is perfect proof of that fact, because it belongs to somebody that lives here in the wilds of Scotland. He previously had a Mercedes E-Class, which was rear-wheel drive, and for at least 1 or 2 months of the year, that would frequently be entirely unusable. Now, he doesn't live at the bottom of a hill or anything like that. It simply could not get off his driveway. End of. And I can understand, therefore, that you would have a need of something with all-weather ability. But you don't need a Range Rover to have all-weather ability. Sure, Range Rover's going to do it, and a Range Rover's going to be fine. What you need is decent all-wheel drive, the right tyres, and, for that added security, a little bit of extra ground clearance. And that's what cars like this and the Audi Allroad provide. So many crossovers now are still two-wheel drive, so they manage somehow the worst of all worlds. They have the space of a small car, they handle as badly as a big car, but they don't have the grip and traction of a proper off-roader, or at least something with four-wheel drive. It really just seems like an awkward, horrible compromise. Estate cars are fantastic. Now, they're not perfect. You're always going to get a little bit more tyre roar in an estate car because of the way that they're designed. That's why you won't find an S-Class available in estate form. But this one is perfectly good enough. It's perfectly comfortable. It's perfectly quiet. In fact, I'm going to put it back into comfort mode, where it is magnificent. Simply wondrous. I'm bombing along down these roads. Now I've got enough grip. Steering's okay. Brakes are pretty decent too. The gearbox is not the best in the world. It's actually a 6-speeder, which surprises me, and you can change it yourself if you want to, but to be fair, with a diesel engine, there's not the most point really doing that. I mean, I can try. Let's see if we can get some sporty stuff out of this, shall we? Here we go, come on. and it just starts to slide around really quickly, and this is not the sort of road you want to slide a car around on, trust me. But you know, there's that if you really want to play with it. The DIN audio system, by the way, the stereo is actually quite good. This car also feels a little bit upmarket. This weird texture on the dash, actually, I kind of like. It's very nice. It's a bit better than the usual fake leather looking stuff. The light cloth and chocolate and wood kind of thing does make it feel a little bit more premium than, say, your average Ford. And yes, I know that there is a Ford under here somewhere. Little bits of it pop out, like these window switches over here. But overall, this does feel like a much more premium product than something like a Mondeo. So you've got a car with a decent range of engines. It's all-wheel drive capable. It'll drive through most reasonable scenarios that something like this should have to tackle with. It's got plenty of space, both in the front, in the middle, and in the back. You've got a sunroof, so it's actually pretty nice. That's one of the few problems that its owners have with the car. The sunroof sticks occasionally. Other than that, in the years that he's had it, it's been faultless. It can do the airport thing with absolute ease because you can get plenty of stuff in the back. You can take it on a walk with the dog. You can park it up a mountain. It just works. Why would you need anything more? Answer, you don't. I will always respect a petrolhead that drives something like this, because to me it says they've thought about their needs of a car and they've bought something that fills all of them and doesn't do anything you don't need it to. So there we have it, the Volvo XC70. It's quite a good car. Well done, Jürgen.